Welcome back. Now, the official campaign period has kicked off today as rival political camps now shift focus to the elections proper after the party primaries. Presidential candidates began presenting their nomination papers to the IEBC, and so will aspirants for other seats throughout the week. In studio tonight, we have political analysts Haman Manyora, Barak Muluk, and Gabriel Muzuma. Thank you all for making time for us tonight. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is GamePlan2017 on Twitter. You can text us on 22422. And we begin with that clearance of presidential candidates, an exercise that continues tomorrow. Ekuro Court, of course, was the first to be cleared, followed by Raila Odinga, then Abdul Badida. Joe Nyaga will return tomorrow. Let's take a look first at what Joe Nyaga and Abdul Badida say today.
You keep talking, you members of the press, of two horse race, and I keep telling you, there's a new one, the ostrich. As you know, in my tribe, Nyaga, my name is an ostrich. An ostrich is faster, double the speed of a horse.
Teachers plan for they have what we call the scheme of work. We plan ahead of time, and as a teacher I'm always prepared. So the failure may come from the students, the Kenyans I want to teach. If the Kenyans will be good students this time, yes, I'm ready even to give remedial classes.
Always amazing, Abdul Badida. Martin in Mombasa says this is a two-horse race, Uhuru versus Raila. The rest are spectators. I don't know what you think. Keep talking to us, text us and tweet us. It's likely that over 8 candidates could be cleared by tomorrow. Can we still talk of a two-horse race? Let me start with you, Manyora.
Well, you know, these are good guys. Abdul Badida is a good guy. Nyaga, you know, is a good guy. And Ekuro Court, I was with him here. These are good guys, but doesn't go beyond that. They are good Kenyans. They are qualified, but this race is between two people. Between Jubilee and NASA. Between Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and Raila Amolo Odinga. The rest have no chance anywhere unless there's a miracle somewhere. It is also a fight between one side with the numbers, one side with strategy. So I can see now NASA has the numbers, Jubilee has the strategy and the organization and the structure.
To mean, so what you're saying is Jubilee don't have numbers?
As we sit here today, I can comfortably say NASA has more numbers than Jubilee. But I equally say that Jubilee has better strategy, better organization, a better machinery, you know, well-oiled than NASA. So now it is strategy versus numbers. You know, the person with strategy can reduce your numbers to irrelevant numbers, and the person with numbers can also ensure that your strategy doesn't take you anywhere.
Okay, we'll come back to that shortly. Right. Let's finish with this issue of this, whether it's a two-horse race or not. But I can see Muluk already frowning. And I also want to know why you say it is NASA that has numbers and not Jubilee. Let me get your initial comments.
I think as usual on an occasion such as this one, you have got other people who are also going to go down in history as having participated. We see that Mheshimiwa Joe Nyaga already acknowledges that he's not one of the horses, he's an ostrich. He says he's going to be running very fast. It's going also to be a question of running towards which direction, because you could be running very fast but in the wrong direction, and already he has suffered a first setback. The race is strictly between NASA and Jubilee. True to the facts, I think to just answer your question in the simplicity form, I think my good fellows are right here. I think it's between NASA and Jubilee, and the reason why I'm saying this, Hussein, is because many voters have actually subscribed to the monolithic dichotomy of communities which are falling between NASA and Jubilee.
They may not have an impact at all, and I look at the results of 2013. Uhuru with 6.1 million, Raila with 5.3 million. Musalia Mudavadi 483,000. I don't know if we want to put Musalia Mudavadi in that category today of such other presidential candidates that you say may not have an impact in the election. Peter Kenneth 72,000, Mohammed Abdul-Badida 52,000, Martha Karua. All in all, until Paul Muite. If I count Paul Muite, James Kiyapi, Martha Karua, Mohammed Abdul-Badida, Peter Kenneth, then all the votes add up to about 200 or so thousand. Couldn't that force a runoff?
It didn't constitute even 1%. Right? If it's
in 2017,
if it had constituted 1%, then we would have ended up in a different scenario. The question is, can these 7 or so candidates, 6 or so candidates, can they marshal 1% collectively, 2%? If they did, they would force a rerun. If they can't, there's no rerun.
But it also depends on how tight the race would be between NASA and Jubilee.
The question of a rerun is not a matter between Jubilee and NASA. It's a matter that is defined by these other people. Because if you left Jubilee and NASA alone and you divided 100% by 2, it would either be 50-50, of course, or someone gets slightly more. So the people who cause it to become a rerun are these others. Can they marshal 1-point-something%?
Could they have an impact?
I doubt. You know what? Let me give you a good example. In a constituency where there are 2 giants signing, sometimes one person comes in an election and spoils one of them. Maybe, usually be like your campaign manager or something like that, and he spoils for you, so the other guy wins. Now let's go to the next election, and that guy comes, the one who spoiled, he gets nothing. Let me tell you, when Mudavadi stood in 2013, there was this narrative that the Kalenjin was supporting him, so the lawyers voted for him on the assumption that the Kalenjin will support him. If we stood today under similar circumstances, people will be what you can call wiser. The same can apply to Peter Kenneth and the rest of these people. If they were to stand exactly the same people, Paul Muite, they will get something. I don't know what I can put. It's something I've seen people cry. You stand and get, say, 10,000 votes, and next time you stand, you get 1,000. You cry. So they wouldn't get anything. And I'm telling you,
by the way, I would agree to
these other runs, let's just call them other runs, because that's what they are. These wannabes. They will not get 1% like Barack tells.
And also the precedents that we've had in the past, it really just gives you a clear indicator that we've always had 2 serious parties that are actually fighting each other. So really, as we move along, I'm yet to see a serious, and again, Hussein, I don't want to disenfranchise anybody among the candidates who have actually presented their papers and those that will do tomorrow. But I have not seen, and this is my views, this is my personal opinion, I've not seen a serious candidate that could emerge to actually tilt that particular vote to a rerun.
Okay.
I'm yet to see that.
After presenting their papers and what we saw on your screens, Raila Odinga and the NASA team going to Jacaranda grounds today with a highly charged political rally. What next would you say for Raila? What is it they should do if they are to win? According to Manyora, it will come back to you. You're already saying what they need is strategy, but they have the numbers. You are frowning upon that.
No. They must have a strategy, and so far I have not seen the strategy. They must also have a very clear message. I think it's also rather too early to talk about whether they have a strategy or not. We're waiting to see in the next few days. In terms of messaging, certainly I have opined that the message has so far been commonplace. It has been trite. They are calling themselves the Super Alliance, and I have said this time and time again, that we want to see what it is that is super about them. Yes, they've told us about Jubilee, the deficiencies, and yes indeed, let them have their attack dogs and attack as robustly as possible, but they must come up with a message of hope. They must be able to evoke hope, to tell us what this Super Alliance is about.
Banyora?
You know, you want me to explain.
In fact, before you do that,
yes.
Do you agree with him that it is NASA that has the numbers but not the strategy? What you're saying is NASA, as it is today, NASA has more numbers than Jubilee.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
I don't think so. It's more or less, for me, just equally divided. In fact, I think that the borderline is going to be very, very slim. That's why strategy is extremely important. You cannot afford to take any portion of the electorate for granted. If I were to say that Jubilee have got one up on NASA, it's because they have already recognized that the people who are called the independents and the small parties are significant. And you cannot start rubbing them the wrong way this early. You must find a way of carrying them along without losing your own party nominees. NASA seems to have decided to open up many war fronts, and that could be very, very tricky.
And I think to an extent I'll agree with what Barack is saying. You know, when you look at the strategies that are coming into place, when you're using terms like, 10 million, strong, when you're talking about 70%, I still think that's just a preemptive notion. It can be used as a campaign gimmick, it can be used as call it whatever you may, but I don't think it cuts what a voter like myself or my good friends would call having numbers. Because Hussein, let me tell you, at the end of the day, I do not believe the election is won during registration. Somebody put it very clearly. They said the election is won on the material day. How many people show up to vote? And that's why I'm saying you can talk about numbers as much as you want, but how many people will show up to vote? Many people, I mean, we've seen what happened in 2013. You had areas that had registered about 90 something percent. How many people showed up to vote? 60, 70% max.
During an election year in almost any country, you can fairly predict the numbers. You take the pulse of the nation. You take the heartbeat. If you check the heartbeat of this country, if you take the pulse of this country, it is NASA.
Based on what?
It is just a heartbeat.
How?
It's a gut feeling.
What do you mean?
And you can see. Listen.
I mean, it has to be based on something.
Numbers don't fall from the sky. If we were to base it on hard facts, what my colleagues at the university will call empirical evidence, then we'll have to wait until the voting has taken place. But when Trump was running against Hillary, in the air you could smell a Trump moment in America.
Could you?
Yes, you would. You would. Let me tell you why.
It meant a Hillary moment.
Let me tell you, what was happening is what Trump was saying was resonating with Americans. And he moved around America. People could smell it. If you move around this country, if you take a taxi, if you go and brush your shoes, something tells you there's NASA in the air. But I must also add, I've said this, it's not that much in terms of margin. So NASA will be around 52 with Jubilee around 48 now. But Jubilee has two important things. I've said one of them is strategy, organization. The other one is incumbency. If they use the incumbency and the strategy they have, they would easily beat NASA. But NASA can also use their numbers, ring-fence their numbers, but there are a number of things they'll have to do. They will have to get good advisors. They will have to develop strategy, which as of now, like Barack says, is not evident. I'm sure it's not there. Among the things they will have to do, if you ask me, I hope they are watching and listening, they will have to de-ODMize their campaign. Today, NASA is still ODM. They will have to de-Luonize that thing. If they don't de-Luonize their campaign, Jubilee would beat them. Because Jubilee has organization and incumbency. That's enough to render your numbers important.
So what you're saying, and I'm sure you all want to weigh in on this. What you're saying,
yes.
Apart from strategy, it's NASA's election to win.
It is theirs to lose.
And I will not be surprised if they lose. What he calls the advantage of incumbency, I would call the burden of incumbency, because Jubilee comes here having been there. They are arriving on the defensive. NASA are arriving on the attack, and they can attack, and you have seen that Jubilee tends to go out to start also saying certain things about NASA that you are there, including mambo jumbo, to the effect that you put together the number of years you're in cabinet. They add up to so many. They are on the defensive. The NASA people need to attack and attack, and they need to have different squads, an attacking squad, and then eventually Raila must look good. So he cannot afford to be the person who is going out to attack all the time. He must gather the pieces and present a message of hope. The burden of incumbency, therefore, is very real for Jubilee.
He talks about, there was no empirical evidence for him to suggest what he's saying, but he talks about a gut feeling and what you feel out and what you're feeling in the air. That's what he's saying. He's smelling it in the air.
No, you see, Jubilee coming in, there's somebody who wrote an article I think some few months ago, and was saying Jubilee will start at 50 plus, right? And so it has to triangulate on how NASA, CORD, to an effect, they've done their work. One thing I'm agreeing with my good friend Barak again is you cannot downplay the powers of an incumbent, right? Unless you want to flop like a pancake, the powers of an incumbent are very strong. In that, you still have majority of Kenyans. And by the way, you can go, even though you may not be supported by empirical evidence, you can go and look, most people don't want change. All right? The agents of... I'm telling you the truth. And that is why you'll find many people saying, I feel we are heading into the right direction. If you talk to the people that you're saying you're talking about, and there are people who are saying we would want change. So the change that you're talking about,
hunger.
No. It can be. You see, that's the other thing. There are two things: the powers of an incumbent, which I'll agree with you, and the other thing is that Wanjiko is becoming educated by the day. So what probably you could be telling us, the advantages probably that Jubilee may ride on is the rhetoric that NASA is continuing to preach. Already, BP is very critical when it comes to giving us the 100 years that Barack, plus the people who've served, they've been in government. What Barack is trying to say, he actually has that history with him. He's saying all these people, back to back, were there in 2013. In fact, this is the same team that we are playing with. And I believe, and again, I've really tried to look at those numbers that you're talking about, where they'll come from. I am yet to see. Unless you can give
you if you want.
No, please do, because I would like to understand them. So somebody who writes this paper, I'll agree with him to this effect, that the powers of an incumbent, you cannot downplay them. And the other thing is that Jubilee may be starting from where they left.
The last election.
Yes.
Right. You've talked about, we're going to have official campaign period began today. You're all talking about strategy either way. You believe it's Jubilee that has the numbers, you believe it's not that has the numbers. You're saying it's actually
50-50.
It's 50-50.
50-50. If you talk about
good balance,
you talk about 50 marginal error.
So what do you think is going to take for either side to win in terms of campaign messaging? We're going to the official campaign period. You're talking about strategies for both sides. What do you think Jubilee can do or should do? For example, Jubilee has been very strong in their campaigns in terms of the development agenda, telling Kenyans what they have done. Do you think it's working or it's resonating with the electorate, or do they have to do something more than that?
It depends on which segment of the electorate it is resonating with, because you can also spend a lot of time preaching to the same congregation, preaching to the converted. The question that Jubilee must answer is whether they are going to be able to bring any new constituencies on board. Because the dynamics have also changed. They have been there, as we have said. They have been tested in certain things. They may have done reasonably well. In certain respects, they have disappointed, because their promissory note of the last time is going to be placed on the table. They are going to be told, you promised this, have you delivered? You promised this and other one here, laptops, you promised Stadia, you promised to employ people, you promised food, you promised to pay doctors, you promised. So those are the things that I call the burdens of incumbency, and they're going to find themselves on the hind foot most of the time, being on the defensive. Are they able to bring on board anything new? NASA, on the other hand, they are now coming as a synergized kind of fraternity. They have unfortunately wasted a lot of time fighting among themselves, and it's going to remain quite a bit of that, where you're finding a number of their own candidates, ANC, ODM, Ford Kenya, competing, and that kind of friendly fire is also likely to be injurious to them. But ultimately, it's the kind of front that Raila Odinga is going to present? Is it going to be a front that brings hope, a front that...
Is it already, from what you see?
So far, it has been that Jubilee bashing. And
does it work?
Jubilee bashing alone does not work, particularly from the captain. He can have the attack dogs. Let the attack dogs go for Jubilee. Let them say all these things that they want to say. But at the end of it, he must wear this elder statesmanly figure or character that then comes and says, yes, you have had all that, but never mind. We are now going to Gloryland, and I'm taking you to the promised land, and this is what that promised land is going to look like.
Okay.
I think, you see, there is a 50-50 arrangement, which you cannot deny in this country. Opposition 50, government 50, Jubilee, NASA, that kind of arrangement. But because of the change in the atmosphere, then you get, NASA is getting the extra 2% I'm talking about. Now, let me tell you how then the numbers can work out to go beyond even that 52. I said, if at the time of presenting their flag bearer, NASA are united, they are still one, you will need to give them 3 or 4 weeks up to the nomination that took place today. And if they are still one the way they are, there could be a momentum in this country. You will begin to see some pieces or portions of this country breaking away from Jubilee and joining NASA. Isaac Ruto, he came as a person, not with many numbers, but that could become numbers tomorrow. And when that happens, you could see a sizable part of the leadership of KANU joining NASA.
Why? Because I mean, and KANU endorsed.
You know, that's an arrangement between Gideon Moore. If you talk to these guys, they will tell you they are NASA. But now, if they did it in broad daylight, publicly, you know how momentum start and they lead to things you can't control. That is where the danger is. So how do they win this election? I've said NASA would have to be blue on eyes. They will have to bring men and women who can help them organize their campaign, which so far is not evident. Jubilee have structures, they are organized. They will need to bring men and women on board also who will ensure that this structure is used to the best advantage and so that they may win. But the big thing I want to point out, because when we talk Kenyans are listening, we must tell them a few things. And the thing I want to say is that this election will have to be won. You know, I have heard a lot of stories outside there. The person to be in State House from August 8th going into 2022 or 21, I don't understand the Constitution, what it says, will be the person who will have won the election. You have to win this election. There will be no other way. You know, there are people who are talking as if there could be any other way. This election you can't win it. You have to win it.
You talk about very briefly. This is very briefly because you talk about Isaac Ruto and him now coming and adding votes to NASA. Isaac Ruto is a governor.
Yes.
What of those? I mean, are you then saying equally for Jubilee, all the other governors that we've been seeing moving from ODM or other parties to join Jubilee would also be the same?
The Kalenjin nation presents an interesting scenario in this election. And from where I sit, in this studio and maybe elsewhere, I can see Rift Valley deciding this election. You know, initial Isaac Ruto, we knew he was NASA, but he was reluctant. He was still weighing, testing the waters. Then he got to a point where he was confident enough to cross over boldly. The next stage, and what this place, the next stage is for the people of South Rift, the Kipsigis nation, to move into NASA. And this is what Jubilee will be watching.
Prof, very quickly.
They should be watching that instead of bashing someone like when I tell you.
Today, I think I have the front row tickets and I have the front row seats to teach you a little bit about the politics of Rift Valley.
Go ahead.
Communities and the directory of tribe that we subscribe to. I'm sorry to say this, Hussein, but you know very well that is what we sadly. Communities have a way of rendering people irrelevant. And I repeat, and I give you a very good case scenario. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta in 2002 against Moi Kibaki. The Kikuyu community rendered him irrelevant until 2013. Now, the Rift Valley people, and I'm telling you, communities are not in the business of giving power away. Mark my words today and the date. When it comes to voting, they will have two options. We have our man here called Isaac Ruto. Why should we give him our vote? What are we gaining? Isaac Ruto does not hold any important space or place in the NASA scheme of things. He's not even number 5. He does not even have any power. I mean, he's running for governor. So they'll ask themselves, why are we giving him? Are you telling me the Rift Valley people are so, I don't even know the name to give them, they are going to give away power, number 2 position, knowing fully well Hussein that let me not even talk about politics of 22, to get a position that has not even been defined. It has to be the craziest idea that will run in Rift Valley. I'm just telling you, people don't vote like that.
The dynamics in Rift Valley are this. Let me just, because you don't have time, you must know Gideon Moi was very reluctant to support this duo of Ruto and Uhuru. And the reasons are not far to see, because I can see you're an intelligent man. if Uhuru wins this election, the chances of Ruto becoming president in 2022 are very high.
Correct.
And that equally means for Gideon it's over. He's not a boy, it's over. And therefore, within the cycle of people like Gideon Moi, inside them, they would wish to finish Ruto by Uhuru losing.
And you watch, and again, watch this space to make him irrelevant. I'm telling you, the Rift Valley community, and again, the Rift Valley people will make Gideon irrelevant for them to ascend to power. Trust you me. That's what we've always done.
Barack will have the last say as we wind up now.
I think, as I said at the outset, this is a very tight race. I've listened to my colleagues going local, which is fine, but ultimately it's going to be a question of mobilization. If you look at, even if you were to go local, you look at the voter turnout the last time within, especially the then called strongholds, you saw that the voter turnout was very poor because they took it for granted. They understood that people would come out and vote anyway. If they were able to go back to their strongholds and galvanize people and get them to turn out and vote, I think Jubilee would have a real run for its political electoral monies.
Right. We'll be talking to political analyst Saman Mayora, Barack Muluk, and Gabriel Muduma. Thank you so much for making time for us tonight on Game Plan 2017. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is Game Plan 2017 on Twitter, and keep texting us on 22422. We're back after this break.